You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 168, we'll be flipping the script a little bit. It's kind of a light news week, I mean, it's really a light news week, not just in Overwatch, but also Overwatch League. So tonight, we're going to be discussing some things that are on the horizon. We will take a look back at the Atlanta homestand, which took place this past weekend, and we'll share our thoughts on this week's Stage 3 playoffs, which have some very intriguing matches, and, a couple former 0-7 teams from earlier stages this season. But before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar. And Ed, we have been patiently waiting for any sort of information dump, whether it is with a new hero, summer games, the 222 lock-in Overwatch League role queue, all of the above, and we have not gotten anything as of yet. Same with roster signings, with the roster lock happening this past Sunday in the Overwatch League. It's been awfully quiet, and it feels like there is this looming presence that is just hovering above us, just ready to unleash, but this week is not that week, or at least this episode is not that episode, unfortunately.
No, yeah, like you said, there's some looming presence out there, like some weird, drastic game change that they're waiting on to announce a lot of things, whether it be roster moves, whether it be, hero updates, new hero even, summer games, anything like that. Everything, I think, revolves around this whole 222 fiasco that is going to happen. If they don't announce 222 at this point, it's going to be a bigger riot than asking if you have cell phones. I think everyone, and even me, who I'm for 222, but I don't need 222. I'm not like, we have to have 222 or the game's dead. And even I'm just like, announce it and just get this shit over with. We all know it's coming. I mean, ex-players has said it, and, our buddy Bob interviewed people down at the Atlanta homestand at interviewed pros, and he's like, hypothetically, if we were to get 222, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And, a lot of them were like, well, when we get it, and, even then, it's just yeah, we all know it's coming. And I think they're going to wait till after the playoffs, which I think is the right move to do. Don't take away from the playoffs. The hype to that. And they'll announce it next week. So that's what I'm at least hoping.
Maybe they'll pull a Fortnite and just drop it the day of the Stage 3.
Day of, and then they have to play on 222 for the playoffs. That is the most Fortnite thing to do. Yeah. And so yeah, it's gonna be an interesting show because, I mean, there's one rumored signing and one rumored trade to the same team, and legit nothing else. We have nothing, nothing in the form of forum posts. Just, you're gonna hear a lot of Totem and Ed ranting and random talking back and forth, and it's gonna be great. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Yeah, so with that being said, for those that are joining us tonight on Twitch, if there are any sort of discussion topics you would like us to talk about tonight is the perfect time to do this, because our agenda is literally blank outside of the close-in notes. So we're just free-forming this from top to bottom. So with that being said, I do have a little bit of workshop notes from this past week. Nothing like major, but, you know, our good buddy Darwin Streams updated Overfighter and added Brigitte to that roster. I do not know what her skill set is, but I would imagine, you know, just like when she was released in Overwatch, she's probably going to be overtuned in that. So you have another option there. There is also a new a practice mode where you can practice around EMP. That way you're not getting hit by it. That was another one that's been pretty popular here in the past week. So it's another sort of training mode. So it's really good for like you Lucio players and Zenyatta players learning, you know, where exactly your position needs to be. So you're not getting hit by that, so you can go in and use your support ult to save your team rather than just getting curb stomped to the ground. So really,
I actually have a request.
Okay.
This is the NR request of the day for anyone out there who knows how to make any of these workshop modes, or, you know, yeah, I really need somebody who can just make workshop modes, because Lord knows if you try and tell me how to do it, I'm not going to know how to do it. I want a 1v1 like battle royale mode. Like, so you both drop in as 1v1, and this may already be a thing, but then like there's a ring, like that slowly gets smaller and smaller as the 1v1 happens. So like it's not going to be like we did this big 1v1 thing this past weekend, and we went like Widowmaker versus Widow, Anne versus Anna. We spent a lot of the time like poking around corners, you know what I mean? Like, whereas if we had like a shrinking ring, we had to like slowly get closer and closer and closer together.
See, what I'm hearing, Ed, is you basically want the map to shrink. That way your sight lines aren't as wide, so you can have a better opportunity at finding someone in your sight lines. That's what I'm hearing.
I beat you at Doomfist, and I beat Spider and Torbjorn Hammer 1v1. So you know what? Everything's a victory for me.
Yeah. It was definitely entertaining. So again, if you guys missed out on that shenanigans this past Wednesday night after the podcast, it is available on our Twitch VODs as well as on our YouTube. So you can see Ed fall off the map as Anna, which was hilarious on Necropolis.
Shut up.
You could also see our Widow 1v1, which was pretty bad.
It was pretty not as bad. Like our Doomfist one was probably the biggest piece of crap I've ever seen. Like it was both our Doomfist plays are below bronze level.
Oh yeah,
Let's
for
just
sure.
Get that straight.
For sure. Like, I am not a combo breaker by any stretch of the imagination, and I can't tell you how many times you and I were just like poking.
Yeah, like neither one of us knows how to do an actual combo on Doomfist. let's just get that right. Like we would uppercut, and then we were both trying to do the slam to the ground, like turn around and no, that's just not how it works. It was a thing of, it's like watching a Rock movie. you know it's gonna be crappy, but it's still super fun to watch.
Was it?
Yes.
Maybe for Spider. Spider was probably just facepalming the whole time, like, what are these guys doing?
Well, like, the thing is like, he could see both of us, and, like, there was one point I remember, I'm, like, standing next to a wall, and you're standing on the other side of the wall, and neither one of us is moving. And Spider's just like, oh. Like, this hurts me.
Yeah, because, like, I was crouched, I was like, I don't know where he is right now, I was gonna, you know, sneak around the corner, and then I went for the rocket punch, and then I completely, like, went out the door.
Yeah, it was... It was ugly.
I was just like, how do you miss that in such a small room? Like, it is what it is. But that being said, Spider clearly was a victor, which was no surprise with this 4-1 record. You and I both also played 5 matches, and
I would like to point out
matched 2 and 3.
The original challenge was Torb Hammer 1v1 me versus Spider. And I won that.
Yeah, there was absolutely no tech involved, but there was tech involved at Atlanta Hopes and 1v1, which we will talk about. But you did win the challenge after you called out Spider on our last episode.
So this makes me better than Defran. By process of elimination, I'm better than Defran.
But yeah.
Yep.
I don't recall you showing up drunk either, so there was also that.
I don't know. By the time we streamed, I might have been.
And that's the thing too. Like, a lot of people have been talking about DeFran's tweet about being drunk throughout the weekend, and like everyone's talking about like how much of a liability that was. Like, nothing really happened. But
he was in the back VIP area where they serve free drinks.
Right.
Like, yeah, you're gonna drink. And then you're like, okay, now go on stage. Now go back to the VIP, do all the meet and greets, continue having free beers. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going from a party atmosphere to let's go do something back to a party atmosphere.
Right.
And the only reason you're going out on stage is to entertain the crowd, not to do anything serious. You're out there to put butts in seats.
Yeah, and
that's it.
I will say, though, just like as an outside spectator, like that homestand did feel like more of a DeFran-con than an actual homestand.
Yeah, the actual homestand was kind of
it was a thing that happened.
To me, it was no different than them playing in LA and it being a Gladiators game. Like, I don't think the crowd was that much different. It's just there was more of a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So you could hear the crowd more simply because there just was more people. Right. I don't think they were any crazier than any other Gladiators game, or like they didn't hold the broomstick of the Dallas homestand.
Yeah.
And you know, there were some scheduling mistakes, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
About the Atlanta homestand. Like, I don't think the Atlanta homestand was a failure, but I give it a solid C.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't anything special. It was just your run-of-the-mill homestand, good crowd for 2 maps, and the DeFran Mangachu thing.
Right.
Like, that was it. The rest of it, the fans could care less.
So, you know, looking at the lack of news this week, obviously, like, the 2 major things are, you know, when's the next hero coming out, for, like, teases, because, like, we know, like, our dev and savior, Papa Jeffy Cap, praise him, had said, like, the scheduling is going to be different for, basically, like, the summer, so, like, we don't know if that means, like, we're gonna get a hero later, if it's just gonna be tied into the summer games, if we're even gonna get summer games, which we probably will, when it's gonna happen, because, like, summer games usually kicks off, like, that first week of August, so, like, it feels like it might even be, like, a couple more weeks before we get, like, official news of it, but a lot of people are anticipating, like, a hero release soon, but at this point, I honestly have no idea, but it is kind of frustrating, but, you know, just looking at the potential for Hero 31, like, are you still on board with Maga being the front runner for the next hero, or are there anyone else that you can think of offhand that you feel like could fit the role?
See, here's the thing. Everyone has these theories, and every time we get a new hero, and it's always something completely different.
Yeah, we see a new name pop up, and everyone's like, oh, that's a new hero.
That's a new hero, new hero, new hero. And then it's somebody completely different. So, like, I honestly don't think it's anyone we know. Or it could go back to somebody that we previously know. Like the Queen of Junkertown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something like that. I don't think you're going to introduce, evil Maui right now. Maybe you'll introduce him down the line. But I think it's more than likely just going to come out of left field. I think it's going to be a tank or a support.
I have a couple of things.
Tank.
I have a couple of things.
Okay.
One, as much as I wanted to be the Junker Queen, I still feel like if anything that would be a BlizzCon one. But here's my Hero 31 or whatever spoiler like for my prediction. I feel like they're going to poke fun at us by releasing one of the Omnic bartenders, okay? They're gonna leave the Paris mansion, and this is going to be a class that throws Molotovs. So it's gonna have fire damage, or Or, like, it will throw, like, brews on the ground that will, like, serve as, like, buffs for the team.
No.
It's gonna be something random.
No. I'm on a real note. I'm thinking flamethrower tank. Some sort of frontline presence that doesn't have a shield.
Okay.
But keeps people back with a flamethrower that leaves a dot type of effect.
Yeah, I really do like the idea of, like, a heavy tank.
Exactly.
And whether it's Mulga or not, you know, still remains to be seen, but I would not be surprised if they have another differential style in regards to, like, that main tank position.
Yeah, they also honestly could use another healer. Like, we really could. If you think of it, like, if you look at the main healers right now, you have what? Is Ana really a main healer, you think?
No.
Really, no. So you have Mercy, Lucio, who's kind of less in there for healing and more in there because of his movement ability, and Moira. And I think that's it for main healers. They could use another frontline main healer in the game. So I could definitely see something like that. I don't see another DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Not right now. Not until they switch to 222 and they balance out. Because if we get a 222, that's going to come with a lot of hero updates. I think that's kind of a general consensus. They're not just going to be like 222 with the current system. No, there's going to be some form of a balance, whether it's drastic or not. I don't think they want to introduce a new DPS character into that mix.
Yeah, and, you know, just speaking of DPS, like, I'm still waiting for an ability in-game that's... I'm trying to think, like, what I should compare this to. Like, something like that's more of a boomerang type effect that, like, passes through people and then will hit people on the way back. Like, I would love to see that in the game, rather than just, like, a projectile that, you know, just bounces on the ground or, like, off walls and stuff. Like, we need something like that, because, like, it feels like they've kind of, like, already gone through, like, specific damage types, but, like, that's one that they haven't done. So we need, like, another form of cleave damage. So that's another route that they could take, rather than something that's just, like, a trickle, kind of like the Winston cannon.
Yeah. The other thing that they actually probably could use is another aerial unit. Like, as much as I hate aerial units, like, Pharah's annoying as hell, but, yeah, I don't like the fact that she's the only true aerial unit. Like, D.Va can go up there, Winston can jump high, but there is no real aerial unit besides Pharah. I think that, and I hate to say this, but this could definitely be a good DPS ultimate, is an aerial player who has an ultimate ability of a net.
Okay.
That traps everyone, kind of like a Zarya bubble, traps the team in place and they can't get out of it. So you get the Zarya effect of the ultimate and the usefulness of the Zarya ultimate through a DPS character. So, like, that's definitely something. I like the idea of a boomerang, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a nice thing. God, there's so much that they could do, though. Like, some form of missiles wouldn't be a bad idea. I just don't know. Like, everyone has these ideas, but it's just they're gonna come up with something out of left field that none of us are gonna realize what's going on.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a character that can legit, like, change the landscape of the map. And then then the pros are really gonna have to worry about their Graviton Surge placement outside of that one pixel on King's Row.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually am gonna correct myself. There has been one hero introduced that was previously introduced through short stories and stuff like that, and that's Hammond.
Mm-hmm.
He was introduced previously with, like, on the map, and people had speculated Hammond for a while. And then we got him much later on, but, you know, I actually wouldn't even be upset if we got another sniper.
Preferably one that we can aim on.
That's asking a bit much.
I know. There's a lot of work that would need to be done in order for that to happen.
Yeah, they also don't have a good close range DPS. Like, I mean, when you think of close, like in the thick of things DPS, who is there? Reaper, not good. Doomfist to some degree, but the mobility is not there, or is there. So, not really truly. He's more of a get in, get out type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the like in-your-face DPS are technically flankers in the game right now.
Exactly. I think they could benefit from an in-your-face, stay in your face type of DPS, not like a flanker who goes in, out, and it's more of an annoyance. But again, who knows what they're gonna do? It'll be interesting, but they need to come out with those teasers rather soon because they need to get this new character out and then have another new character ready and waiting for BlizzCon.
Right.
So,
and Lord help us if we don't get anything until BlizzCon on that front.
If we don't get anything till BlizzCon, I will no longer praise Papa Jeffy Capcom.
Mm-hmm.
I will when you say praise him, I'll be like boo.
Trenchford says that if they do a new sniper, cool ability would be active camo, making them harder to see the slower they move. Yeah, kind of. Don't hunters like have like an active camo like that, where like if they stand in one position, they like are empowered.
Yeah. It's oh god, what was the ability? I can't remember the actual name of the ability, but yes, it was like they were able to sneak past people for a short period of time, and do all that stuff. Trenchfoot, all you have to do, play against me, and you're already active camo because I can't see you. That's all you have to do.
That is a fact. I can confirm firsthand. I've seen it happen, both as a spectator and also as an opponent of Ed.
Yeah, but if I was to rank what I want most, it would be a flamethrower main tank, 1, and 2 would be another main support whose sole job is to heal. And that's why Mercy will always be in the meta, is because Mercy is the only healing is your 95% of your job function is heal. Lucio, you can't say that about Lucio. You can't say that about Moira or Anna, you know what I mean, or anything like that. Mercy's main job is to just sit there and heal. And they need another character like that. So I would go with that second. And then after that, I don't know, shits and giggles.
Yeah, so just going back to roll queue real quick. One of the things that is always interesting to figure out is, well, how exactly are placements going to be done? Is your main SR, are they going to average out how you place on, or where you are on damage, tanks, and supports, and use that as your main SR? How is that going to factor in when you're in a group? Is it just going to take your bulk SR average, or is it going to be based on what your average is based on your active role? Because I feel like if they do it where you have to do placements on specific roles, that's going to be really awkward. And I know you and I have a hard enough time certain months actually getting through our normal placements, let alone if they add anything on top of that.
I think there's a way they could implement it where you do your base SR, and then after that it splits off into the 3. So then it goes to, okay, well, your first game after your placements, you play DPS. You locked into the DPS role. Then it will adjust your DPS SR based on the initial first placement SR, based on that. And then another one, if the next game you go healer, it will base your up or down on your SR after that as well. So you only have to do the 10 placements to get your base SR, and then after that it splits off into 3, kind of like a trident.
Yeah, I'm curious to know when it comes to that, if let's say you are gold, I can't remember what the range is offhand. But
2,000 to 2,500, I think, is gold.
Okay, let's say you're on a high end of gold to DPS. Let's say you switch to support. I'd be curious to know if they're gonna set it base, the very bottom of that tier for you. or if it's going to be closer to where you currently are. Because, like, the thing is, it's, like, even depending on, like, what tier you are, even on a new role, like, you're obviously not going to know what you're doing, but, like, the lower you are, it's going to be less of a boon, like, if you're, you know, flexing off of something, whereas, like, in the higher tiers, it's going to be a lot more noticeable if you are on an off roll. So, I don't know what they're going to do on that front.
There's no way that they can keep the same SR for all 3 roles.
Right.
That is one thing for certain. It's all about how they handle it, like, and how they decide to break apart those SRs. Because, like, I'd say my highest SR would be as a healer, and then tank, and then, you know, healer, tank, DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and I would not want to be where my healer SR is and play DPS. So a lot of that's going to be is once you lock into a role, like when you queue with a role, and you're not allowed to switch off that during the match. So if you sign up as a healer, you're not allowed to switch with somebody else and have them go healer and you go DPS.
Right.
That is one thing that has to be implemented.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a lot of people are going to be upset probably by the way this is implemented, but it has to be really strict when they do implement it. Now, is there any way, like, this thought came to my mind, is there any way that they implement 222 Overwatch League only?
Initially?
No.
Or just exclusively?
Exclusively. Like, they go straight for the viewership of esports over the game. Like, they implement it for the viewers, for people like that, because, like, and the reason I was thinking this is in Overwatch League, people hated GOATs and were screaming for 222 to get rid of GOATs. Well, when they were screaming to get rid of GOATs, it wasn't because they were screaming to get rid of it on ranked, because in ranked in-game, 222 wasn't, GOATs wasn't a thing. They were playing all sorts of weird comps, stuff like that. We saw it on streams, we saw it, all of this. Like, Emong was like, yeah, no, we don't play 3-3. Like, plain and simple. Like, we're not doing that. And people were still clamoring for 222 to get rid of GOATs in the Overwatch League. So could it just be they do it just to implement it for viewership's sake and keep the core game intact?
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, there's also, like, the base argument of whether or not you even need 222 at this point in the Overwatch League, since the meta has really started to evolve away from primarily running 3-3. I think at the end of the day, the best way to look at it is with a balancing philosophy. Like, if you feel like 222 is the best move to make in order to further balance a game, to bring more longevity to the game cycle, then I feel like you absolutely need to incorporate it, not just in the Overwatch League, but also the base game itself. But, like, if it were up to me, I would say I'd prefer to see how it plays out in the Overwatch League first, and then for them to adjust and implement it at a later date in the base game. Cause, like, I'm always very cautious when it comes to, like, a 222 change, knowing that they are going to have to make additional balance changes along with it, and, you know, with it being radio silent, and, you know, that PTR patch that has just been sitting there that really doesn't have anything, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, we feel like it's looming. Like, there has to be a major change coming, whether it's a balance patch or whether it's 222, whether it's both, we don't know. But I would honestly prefer them looking at Overwatch League implementation first, and then having that major balance patch that would probably hit, you know, closer towards the end of whatever, you know, that stage is.
Yeah, it's whatever it is, it has to be implemented by Tuesday of next week. Regardless. Like, even then, I think that's too late. Because if they need to implement any balance changes, they can't test any of that out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just not, you're not gonna put out a balance patch with all these hero changes in 222 and get that all perfectly balanced in 1 week, because they have stated the Overwatch League, the stage, will be playing on the same patch that is live
Right.
at the beginning of the stage. So this would need to be live. Now, can they roll that back? 100%. I don't think anyone would blame them, but they still need to do massive balances. Like, anyone who thinks that they don't need to do balances aren't thinking it through fully. Like, the argument I've heard from people who don't think that they need to do massive balances is, well, in ladder now, it's not that obscure and there's no broken characters. Well, the thing is, now on the ladder, if you want to switch to counter something, you're able to.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to switch to goats to counter something, you are able to. You balance it around being able to switch to that. Now, take into account, you need to counter this, but you can't actually switch off 2 tanks. Or something like that to counter something. It needs to be balanced around that. So those balances need to be addressed before 222 gets put into the Overwatch League, because if they don't balance it for stage 4 is just going to be like the run of the West. Like, no one knows what's going to go on. In my mind, if they just implement 222 without balance changes, I'm negating stage 4.
If I were to speculate, okay, let's say there's no changes outside of 222, I would imagine we'd probably see a lot of, Orisa Hog compositions, because that's pretty much what we're seeing on ladder. I would expect either a lot of projectile base, where, you have, like, Pharah Sombra compositions, like, Shanghai would be, pretty good at that, assuming, they can get their team synergy down. It's either going to be that, full-on dive, or, like, double sniper comps would probably be the 3 primary themes that I would expect to see. Or maybe even, Doombra would be another option.
Like, Trenchfoot in chat makes a good point. Do they even bring 222 for stage 4? Do they need to? Like, because, like you were just saying, the meta is not goats.
Right.
They don't need to get 222 out there to get rid of goats. They need to bring in 222 to balance the game fully. Don't rush it. Don't bring in 222 for stage 4. Just don't. It's not a smart move. It seems like a drastic rush move to try and counter goats. Well, goats is basically gone. We've seen what it has become a goat, and it's a thing of the past.
Yeah, it's kind of like at the point now where it's map specific at this point. Like, you do see a lot of people running like the Sombra variation over others, or like with the Spark, they're still running a lot of 3-3, but they're running a Winston. But
and
like,
that's not even 3-3 really.
Yeah.
Sombra, it's
a countdown.
Sombra goats is not goats. Goats is 3 tanks. 3 tanks, 3 support. Not 3 support, 2 tanks, 1 DPS. That's not goats. Let's just get that out there. It's a whole different meta if you're not running 3 tanks, 3 supports, which is essentially what goats is. So you're not really seeing the amount of 3 tanks, 3 supports maps we're seeing is so limited now that it's in the minority, drastically in the minority. So you don't need 222 to break up the goats comp to see what teams can actually play, and that's been proven. Look at the Valiant, look at the Outlaws, look at Shanghai, teams like that. Even the Shock, New York Excelsior, Titans are going away from goats and running the countdown. So they don't need to bring in 222 to get rid of goats when goats isn't a problem right now, and it will allow them to actually test and balance out the game.
Mm-hmm.
Which they need to do with this.
Right. So with that being said, when we're looking at like some of the stuff that's going on right now in Path to Pro in the Overwatch League, I do want to note quick update on Fantasy Overwatch League. We are having a featured league for OWL by the numbers for our listener league. at fantasyowl.com. That will be on Friday this week, so be sure to set your daily lineups for that. And, you know, like, the whole 2-2-2 discussion is an interesting one, but it's really been played out. So, like, if you want to get the pro perspective, as you know, aforementioned earlier on in this episode, you know, our good friends over at Our Recap did a lot of interviews with the pro players during the Atlanta homestand. So if you want a little bit of insight on the player perspective of the expected 2-2-2 change, be sure to go check out that video over on their YouTube. And I'm pretty sure like they even linked it in our community content section, so you can find it there as well. Now, that being said, it is worth noting that on Sunday, this was July 7th, we had the roster lock in the Overwatch League. And there hasn't been any official sign-ins announced as of yet. I do know, like, the Vancouver Titans announced that they had picked up a new translator earlier today. And that's really, like, the only, like, official thing that we have seen, you know? Like, it's a staff sign-in, which is great. I did find it interesting, like, they didn't have, like, an official translator, like, on the team. I wonder if, like, Harsha was, like, the primary person for that, or what the situation was on that front. I'm not positive. But with that being said, there have been, like, a couple of, like, rumored or reported sign-ins, too, actually. And the first one was, from Path to Pro to the Overwatch League. So the first one I want to bring up is Tizzy, who had left Grunto Esports earlier in the week, and, you know, the team had basically teased that he would be joining a new team here shortly. Now, you know, Tizzy is probably a name that you guys have seen in Contenders. He's been on a couple of the different academy teams. At one point, he was on Runaway, and he is rumored to be joining the Vancouver Titans for stage number 4. Now, it is worth noting, like, you know, he was on the London Spitfire during the inaugural season. He didn't really play, unfortunately. But, you know, either way, should Tizzy move and reunite with, you know, former Runaway members like Stitch, Hoxel, Johnny, and Bumper, he's still going to be coming in as a backup main tank for Bumper. The thing I'm really curious about, though, is should this sign-in come through, I wonder what his Wrecking Ball experience is. Like, that's a big question mark for me, because, like, we know Bumper cannot play Wrecking Ball. They always have Janu in on Wrecking Ball whenever they're running, like, these triple DPS competitions. And, you know, should, like, a Wrecking Ball dive situation happen in the Overwatch League, you know, it would not be a bad thing to have in your back pocket should that arise.
Would you say he came in like a Wrecking Ball?
Only if he plays Hammond.
No, I mean, we've seen him all over. He kind of went he's going the Rascal route.
Mm-hmm.
Like going team to team to team, contenders to team type of situation. And I like the signing. I really do. You get that experienced backup tank to Bumper, who, I'll say this now, Bumper is teetering on the edge of being benchable by the Titans by his play. Like, he is so risky, and it works out for him because of the other team. Like, imagine Bumper, his play style, on a shitty team. Like, let's say he was on the Justice. He would be getting chastised just like Jonas is. But it's because he's on the Vancouver Titans that his play works well with that team.
Well, I don't think that Bumper would be the 20th ranked Reinhardt, even if he were on the Justice.
Would he not? Like, he gets bailed out of so much because of his team, and I don't think anybody can deny that. Like, he is crazy aggressive because of the team around him. So this is a little bit of a backup if they need to be like, Bumper, sit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to rein it in. Kind of you better, like, we know you're super talented, but you need to take us serious when we tell you what to do. Don't go off on your own. And as punishment, we're going to put in Tizzy. Type of situation. You're not gonna see a drastic drop off. I don't think.
I still feel like, though, like, when it comes to Bumper, I wouldn't actually make that move unless it comes back to bite them in the ass when there's a lot of money on the line. Because, like, say what you will about the playstyle. I mean, it is high risk, high reward, but it is very entertaining to watch.
All right, would you have said the same thing about Fissure before this year with Marvell?
I mean, Fissure wasn't a good fit for the Dynasty either way.
But that's like the perfect example. You take the runner-up MVP last year, and you come into this year, and he gets benched and then retires. Like, that's one thing I've come to notice about the Overwatch League. We can all think that somebody is so good, so great, so irreplaceable, and the next week they're benched. And we're like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this?
I feel like the difference is, though, Titans are naturally more aggressive. And, you know, Hoxel is, you know, right in line with Bumper, too. So there is already more, like, pre-built synergy from, like, the team perspective, as opposed to, like, the Fissure situation with the Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's just, I'm not saying Bumper's going to get benched, but it's a really nice insurance policy for Bumper.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't really have one before. And if he actually is a good Wrecking Ball, like a better Wrecking Ball, and Wrecking Ball becomes meta, then it's nice to have that main tank, if need to be switch, can be like, okay, I'm going to go to Reinhardt now. Because their old Hammond was Janu, and Janu's not going from Hammond to Reinhardt or Winston.
Mm-hmm.
He's going Hammond to D.Va.
Right, which makes it very predictable whenever he's in on Wrecking Ball. Now, that being said, you know, there was another report earlier today about a sign-in as well, which I know Trenchfoot had mentioned in chat. We're actually covering that right now. So, Halo of Thoughts had reported earlier today that the Guangzhou Charge have traded Kib to the Philadelphia Fusion in exchange for Fraggy.
Free Fraggy!
Hashtag free Fraggy. Outside of that, that was not the only move that they had made, as they also had traded cash for Bishu from, you know, the Los Angeles Gladiators. You know, Bishu was still on a two-way contract. So, this is a very interesting ordeal here. I'm still trying to, like, weigh out everything. And, like, part of me is like, okay, I don't know how this is going to work, but part of me is also excited. So, for one, for Kib, it means that he's going to reunite with the United Kingdom Overwatch World Cup head coach Hayes on Philadelphia Fusion.
Suck it to you.
As, you know, for, like, a long time now, you know, people have been very hard on Sado. Everyone's been wondering, what is going on with Fraggy? Why aren't they playing Fraggy? Even when Sado was struggling, that was before, you know, Fusion. We're starting to rely more heavily on the Winston play from Sado, which was definitely his bread and butter, as opposed to his Reinhardt. But at its core, the issue when it came to, like, Fraggy getting benched was Carpe. Carpe was a reason that we never saw Fraggy, and now Fraggy's been freed, and it's really weird. So, like, for one, like, I think Rio, I think he's been serviceable. I don't think he's a bad main tank by any stretch of the imagination, but it's really hard to compare the two, knowing that Fraggy has just been kind of, like, sitting idly, like, for so long at this point, so I can't really do, like, a head-to-head comparison, just because we haven't seen Fraggy, you know?
Yeah, everyone screams for Fraggy, but we just don't know if he's, like, there's a reason he lost his starting spot to Sado last season, and we just haven't seen it. Like, we don't know. Like, everyone's like, free Fraggy, free Fraggy. Well, everyone said free Mendo last year with the Outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
Mendo's now out. Like, yeah, they might have been better. It's just a matter of you want what you can't see with Fraggy. So now we probably will actually get to see what Fraggy's all about and see if he's actually better.
Potentially.
Potentially
there's
better.
no guarantee that he is going to start over Rio for the Guangzhou Charge. Now, that being said, I know a lot of people are going to be happy knowing that Fraggy is going to have a better opportunity at playing just because he wasn't going to get that chance just due to whatever, behind-the-scenes stuff was going on between Carpe and Fraggy. But, it does kind of, beg the question, how much pull does Carpe have with the Fusion, and at what point does the team feel like that becomes an issue?
Now, one thing I will bring up that I haven't really heard too much about is this might actually affect Poco more than anyone else. So, I'm thinking, big picture. Sato, you heard, if you listen to the video that Bob had put out about the players talking about 2-2-2, everyone kind of talked about how Orisa is going to be meta as the main tank. But who do you want with Orisa? You want a Roadhog.
Primarily, yeah.
And Kib is a phenomenal Roadhog. So I don't know if they brought in Kib to be the new Roadhog to bench Poco.
Yeah, and to that point, too, I do quickly want to note that when it comes to Roadhog play in the Overwatch League, it's not necessarily always the DPS that's going to that role. It's been a lot of the flex support. So normally it will be Boombox in this situation, move in off of Zenyatta or Ana in order to play Roadhog in those situations. So it gives you an element, another option, so you're not having to basically just revert to a solo support situation. But that's primarily what we see. So it's an interesting discussion. Should 2-2-2 happen? That means that basically, in that case, Boombox would still be on flex support, with Kib flexing over to the Roadhog at that point.
Yeah. And Carpe, I don't know, a lot of people put in this speculation that this is Carpe driven, but I don't know if Philadelphia puts that much into one player. I just say because they've obviously seen that Carpe is definitely, before what we see now, them actually playing well and playing double sniper, playing what they're more comfortable on. Carpe was a liability for that team.
Yeah, he was a below average Zarya player throughout the season.
Yeah, if there were two weaknesses on that team, it was Carpe and Sato. And EQ. The healers, I was fine with the healers. But Carpe, EQO, and Sato were the weaknesses.
Yeah, go figure. Two of the VBS players that aren't actually getting to play their roles.
Exactly. So, when you look at it from that point of view, I don't know if they give much to Carpe as a decision maker. Just because they could have easily replaced Carpe. You look at Fusion Uni, they could have basically brought up that entire roster. That was 18. and done just fine. They could have not made the playoffs just like this team. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I give much credit to the Carpe deciding that Sato was going to play over Fraggy. I think it more along the lines played to who has the best synergy.
Right.
And I think that played into it a bit more.
Yeah, and from the Kib perspective, it is important to note that his playtime on DPS is definitely hindered by the other components that the Charge have. But I don't know if I would say the situation is going to be any better on the Philadelphia Fusion between Carpe and EQO also being there. I still feel like he's playing second fiddle to the other two. But it's really the Bishu sign-in to me that is very peculiar. Now, Bishu, he had some health issues. So Gladiators basically sent him on a two-way contract. He was competing with Gladiators Legion. And, he was looking really solid in contenders throughout the season. And, we know on the Guangzhou Charge they have Hotba. So right now, a lot of the discussion is going to be built around who is the better D.Va player. Like, do you value Hotba on the position just due to the fact that he has that extra flexibility? Because, looking back, even going back to, like, last year when Hotba was on the Philadelphia Fusion, like, in the playoffs, there were a lot of situations when Hotba wasn't even playing D.Va. He was over wrecking people on Tracer, of all things. And, there were a couple other flexings that were doing that as well. But I feel like if we're just primarily looking at Bishu and Hotba, like in a head-to-head on the D.Va role specifically, I would still favor Bishu in that, despite the added flexibility. But at the same time, it's more like, is Bishu coming in acting as like a translator and a shot caller for this team? Because that was one of his primary roles when he was on the Gladiators. And I want to know more about, like, the communication on the Guangzhou charge. Is a translator even needed? I know they are a very like, mixed roster. It's just a matter of what that communication is actually like. But, like, it could be a good bridge between, the two, like, the Eastern and the Western players on that team. So I feel like either way, like, signing him for cash or trading him for cash is a good move. It gives them some extra flexibility. It does give them a better D.Va option, but it's just a matter of, do you favor the flexibility of someone like Hotba, or do you go for someone that might have a little bit more like communication-based performance with Bishu? I don't know.
Yeah, like, all right, so you brought up 2 points that I want to kind of talk about. And Trenchfoot in chat kind of put it the same way. He's like, I love Bishu, but I love Hotba's hero pool more.
Mm-hmm.
Hero pool means shit if it's a 2-2-2.
Right.
Like, Hotba's hero pool means nothing when you go 2-2-2. So it's not a matter of if, Hotba can flex over to the Tracer like he can, because in 2-2-2, he can't flex over to the Tracer. Like, so you got that. And the other thing is, everyone talks about the off tank now. And this is a wide problem that the Overwatch League has, and Overwatch in general has. When you hear flex tank, what's the first thing you think of?
D.Va.
Exactly. Why should D.Va be the automatic flex tank? Like, that is one of those balancing issues that Blizzard needs to address. Like, there are certain things that when you think flex tank and flex support, you think of two things. You think D.Va, you think Zenyatta.
Right, because they've been the staples.
They've been the staples. And when you go to 2-2-2, that is what needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are way more flex tanks. I mean, you're looking Zarya. Roadhog can be one of the best flex tanks in the game with his kits. And he's just not used because D.Va is such a good flex tank and can do so much. So and flex support, Ana, we've seen, is probably a more effective flex support, but they couldn't really play Ana because of D.Va. Like, a lot of these problems come down to D.Va being the issue. So what if they know what the changes are going to be? What if they know that D.Va's going to get nerfed a little?
Right.
And, you know what I mean? And then who says that Bishu's not as good on a Roadhog as Hotba is, or a Zarya, or you know what I mean, or God forbid the new flex tank that might come out with as Hero 31. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know what's going to happen. So you do all of that, plus you add in the added factor of Bishu being the translator. I don't think you make this trade without those two being your new starting tanks. So I 100% believe that Bishu and Fragi will be the new starting tanks for the Guangzhou charge if this trade actually goes through.
Right. So with that being said, like if it does get officially announced, it'll probably come within the next couple of days, more than likely. So outside of that, really like the only other thing that kind of happened in regards to the rosters was Kuki had retired from the LA Valiant. So basically with Kuki, like we primarily saw him not on his primary role. We saw him playing in main support back when Cussa was too big brain to play 3-3 on the Valiant during their winless stage. So just kind of continue that trend for the Valiant moving towards a majority Western roster out there. Now Ed, like I want to get your thoughts on like if you feel like the Valiant were buyers during like before like that signing window. Like do you feel like they went out and acquired like another main tank to kind of fill that like sub role?
Yeah, I do. I feel there's a lot of signings I feel we don't know about yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I think and this is purely based on knowing that 222 is coming. Every team needs to have 10 to 12 players. You need to have a backup main support, backup flex support, backup flex tank, backup main tank, and then at least one backup DPS. Like that is something you just need to have across the board with 222 roll on. Like if you don't, your team is doing a disservice.
Right.
And with the loss of Kuki, you're losing that aspect of it, and you need to replace that. Just like I think Seoul probably has signed another main tank. We just don't know yet. And because they're missing out on like if Marvel goes down, they have no main tank. Nobody wants to see Ryuji Kong. No one wants to see that again. So like it becomes more important than ever with the 222 to have backups at every key position. So I think
Trenchfoot is the only one that wants to see it, apparently.
Shut up, Trenchfoot. But you know what I mean? Like, I could see them bringing in somebody else. I don't know if... Maybe Mayhem have some more hidden NA players they could trade the Valiant.
Yeah. Potentially. So another thing I want to bring up is a quick update on Contenders Korea, because, we got to follow our boys Fusion Uni. Big shocker, guys.
Boom!
It went to a map 5.
And?
They didn't win this one.
They did not.
So right now, Fusion University are sitting at a record of 1-2. They have a -1 map differential. Every series has gone to a map 5. Now, looking ahead at next week, they are facing Gen G, which is the Seoul Dynasty Academy team, who are currently 3-0. So that kind of sucks, but, with the playoff situation in Contenders Korea in the group stage, basically, you gotta make top 6. That's 6 out of 8. And if you look at the current stand-ins, Fusion Uni are 6th, which would be that final playoff spot. So, despite all the lofty expectations, despite, how much we want to see NA just crush Korea, it quite hasn't happened yet. So their sole win so far came against WGS, who are one of the winless teams. And then the 2 teams that they lost to were, Runaway, which was their first series, and then they most recently lost to O2 Blast this past week. Now, it is important to note that, you look at these teams that are below them. You have Meta Athena, you have WGS. Both of them are currently 0-3, so, Fusion has that going for them. But the scheduling for both of those teams is also in Fusion University's favor. So you have Meta Athena, who are going up against Runaway next. WGS are going up against O2 Blast, 2 of the better teams in that group, so there's still hope. But based on how things have happened, it does look like Fusion Uni are going to have a very low seed. So it might be a quick out in regards to the actual playoffs. But either way, like I like the fact that they've continued the trend of the map 5. That seems to always follow them from region to region, or just team to team, I guess is the best way to put it, since it does happen with Philadelphia Fusion as well. But it's going to be a very tall order for Fusion University should they make the playoffs at that cut.
Now, alright, so here's the thing. I know Fusion University, we're finally seeing them have actual competition. Like, that's plain and simple. They actually have competition instead of just dominating NA. Are they going to stay there next year? Let's be real. Like, once Alarm turns to 18, he's in the Overwatch League.
Right.
Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. Alarm's in the Overwatch League. Elk will probably, like, if a team doesn't sign that duo together, they're idiots. Like, plain and simple. You need to sign Elk and Alarm together. And then, like, the team starts to deteriorate. Do they come back to NA?
I feel like the safest thing to say is to say if they get relegated, they move back.
If they get relegated, I can see that.
I do think, though, that like when it comes to building the players and giving them that experience, Korea will always be the best region to be in. But who knows? Like, we've seen a lot of teams get demoted to trials, and then they're just like, oh, guess we're just gonna drop everyone, or just take some time off and then come back with something else. Looking at you, Guangzhou Academy.
Like what I fear that they're gonna do is they're gonna lose all their NA players and EU players,
and then start from like scratch,
and then just be like, okay, we're gonna just start signing Korean talents. Like, that's what I fear, because when you think Philadelphia Fusion Academy team, you're not like, ooh, Philadelphia, that sounds Korean. Like, I bet you they play in Korea, not in the NA. Like, they went there because that's where the talent was, which I get.
Well, but, I mean, it's not just that, but like, it's also the fact that they didn't really have competition.
They didn't, but they will have competition when all their best players leave.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what Fusion Uni does. But I don't see them staying there.
It is important to note, though, that we have seen teams having to start from scratch. And here's a case in point, Ed, and you probably know where I'm going to go with this. You had Runaway, who signed with Vancouver Titans, and they had open tryouts. They come back, and they went undefeated. The next season, like, there are just certain teams out there that have the system in place that puts them ahead of the rest of the competition, regardless of how many moving pieces there are. And with the sheer amount of success and, players being put on loan and playing for other teams, or, moving to a contract and, getting some main stage time, and just seeing how many, like, coaching changes that team has undergone, and even, other additional stat changes as well. Fusion Uni is basically, at least from an NA org perspective, the best team at having that in their favor. So, like, I'd be more concerned should they have all these pieces move and then stay in Korea, as opposed to them losing all those pieces and then moving back to NA. Like, I feel like if they still go to NA, even with a rebuilt roster, they're still going to be a playoff caliber team.
I was muted there. I stopped myself. No, I mean, I get that. It's just I'm just looking into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things, like, it just sucks to have the NA lose their best team. And, you know, we could be like, well, there's EU, but EU sucks.
They lost the NA. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, I mean, their best team is Clockwork Vendetta.
I do quickly want to note, too, that EU lost one of their best players in Spectral, who signed with Grunto Esports as well. So he's now going to be playing in NA.
Yes, and for those, what is... all right, not everyone knows who Grunto Esports is. What was their previous name again?
Chicken Contendies, and there's a lot of drama going on with that team, too,
yeah,
with
what is
Harblue
going on with that? Like, I saw articles with Harblue, like... And I'm like, okay, I'm on my 4th of July. I'm on my 10th drink at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, trying to read about Contenders drama. And I'm like, nope, phone put away.
To be honest, I overlooked a lot of it just because, you know, it's in the rumor mill. But my main takeaway is there's a lot of, you know, behind the scenes drama on that team, but that is a team. It seems like more of a managerial issue on the team, but, like, they're going out and they're making moves either way. There's a lot of money behind this team, and, you know, them picking up Spectral was a monster move. I can't wait to see him compete in NA after he had been one of the more dominant DPS players on Angry Titans. But it was weird. Like, there's a lot of turnover on that team, and it feels like a lot of that is just due to the turmoil behind the scenes. But who knows? That was all in the rumor mill. I don't know if it was Halo of Thoughts or it was Bench Mob that had reported about it, or maybe it was on Upcomer. I don't know. It was one of those sites.
One of the sites.
But there's shit going down apparently on that team. I mean, there's always something going down in Tier 2. There's always some sort of drama happening, whether it's, you know, like a team owner just lashing out at literally everyone on social media, calling out, you know, Toronto Defiant and all that shit.
Or you have your flex support calling out your organization, saying we're better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Raucous. Did you see that?
I don't think I did.
So this week he basically, I'm not going to say it word for word because I don't memorize Raucous's tweets, but he said something along the lines of, he's like, you know, no president, no owner, got rid of 5 of our coaching staff and still came back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, basically, like, look at me now. Like, we're in shambles, but we're doing well. Type of situation. Be like, shut up, Rockets. You're going to lose in the first round.
It's like, hey, like, you guys decided to just not mirror 3-3, which you were trash at. So, like, mm-hmm. I would hope, like, you would have been able to secure some wins after doing that, especially with that strength of schedule. But I did. I don't know if it was Didn't Raucous tweet to, like, Toronto Defiant about, like, them turning around after an 0-7 stage? It was one of the Outlaws players.
I think it was Raucous.
So maybe that was his way of trying to balance it out. Would be my guess.
I don't even know.
Who knows?
Was just, you suck, Raucous. I'm gonna reiterate that. I don't like you, Raucous.
So of course
you do have the biggest butt in Overwatch, though.
He does, and that's what most people will remember him from.
Exactly.
This
show's getting weird.
Of course, you know, we did have the Atlanta homestand here in the past week, and we did have a couple of 1v1s. Honestly, both of them were more thrilling than whatever we did last Wednesday. So, of course, we had Bren versus Baby Bay in the Widow 1v1. Then we had Mangachu versus the Fran in the Torb Hammer only 1v1. And I have to say, you know, Bren, like, doing his whole entrance really cracked me up. You know, he goes on stage, he gets a legit reaction compared to Baby Bay. Baby Bay got shit for a reaction from the home crowd. But they were cheering for Bren, especially when Bren had, like, the one-day Atlanta Reign contract in his hand. And then, of course, you know, Bren turned heel and just ripped up the contract because he didn't want to play for a trash team, which I thought was hilarious because, You know, everyone saw themselves in Bren in that moment. It was like an average player going up against a pro player on stage, and then Bren goes out and does that. But you know, we don't need to see, you know, Bren in the leggings or the open heavy coat, things like that. Like, oh Jesus.
The Bren bulge was real, and that is something nobody wanted to see. The Bren bulge did not need to happen. Like, as far as you're talking about, yeah, the crowd could care less about Baby Bay.
It was so funny.
Like you said earlier, it was like Dufran Con. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone was there just for Dufran. That's it. Nobody gave two craps about anything else. They were there for Dufran. The 1v1 Widowmaker was a joke. So, Bren got, 3 kills?
Well, he got, 2 gimmies and then 1 legit
Exactly. Like, it was... Baby Bay gave him, I'm going to stand in front of you, move around, crouch, turn around, not shoot at you.
For, a minute straight.
I'll let you try and kill me.
Which he did.
Yeah.
Twice.
Eventually.
Yeah.
After a lot of shots. It was essentially, Bren got 1 actual legit headshot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
And it's worth noting, too, when that happened, Baby Bay had taken, 7 straight rounds. So, he was definitely feeling it at that point.
Oh, yeah, no. I think I predicted the best Bren could do was to get 1 shot. And that's what he did. I'm not giving him the other 2. Because it's like, you're having a duel with somebody who's not shooting. You're gonna win that duel 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going up against someone who won't shoot back. So, your only hope is that, for Baby Bay to win is if he pulls an Ednar and falls off the map.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
But, even then, I don't know if he'd get credit because it's headshots only. So, yeah, even then...
Maybe it's just a reset at that point. I don't know, we'll have to test that.
But you know what I mean? It was a joke. I would have rather if it had been Dufran versus him.
Mm-hmm.
I think both matchups should have been Dufran. And you feature Dufran both days. Why not? Doesn't harm anything. So Why not bring on Dufran, which obviously everyone was there for Dufran. I don't know. It was wonky.
Yeah, I will say with the Torb Hammer only 1v1, I did not expect it to be that good. I was like, this is gonna be dumb. I was expecting all this Torb tech. Because, when you and Spider were doing your 1v1, you guys were basically just going straight at each other. There was no shenanigans going on. So, what's really interesting is, Mangachu was basically, coming out, and there were times when he would, fake a hammer attack, only to, try to force out the overload from, Dufran, and then he would, wait it out, and then, he'd get the upper hand that way. But there were times when we would see them, climb over Torb's head to try to avoid some of the hammer swings. But, not only did Mangachu win the 1v1, he also secured the lead for the most hammer kills in the Overwatch League, which, of course, is an important stat to have, so he dethroned Surefour in that regard. And he also has Toronto's only win this stage, so, at least Toronto has something going for them. But that's about it.
Yeah, no, Toronto, and I said this last night on OWL by the Numbers, is Toronto was probably the most fun team to watch this entire weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably because of Mangachu and, Logix. But Mangachu, I think it was more of a nostalgia thing.
Right.
Everyone's like, Mangachu, we love you. We wanted you in the Overwatch League for over a year now.
Since day one.
Yeah, thank God you're here, and he didn't disappoint. I mean, like I said at the top of the show, Mangachu, Torbhammer, Edinar, Torbhammer, Dufran, Spider. That's how it goes. I mean, the facts are out there.
The record speaks for themselves.
The record does. Dufran and Mangachu had strategy when it comes to the 1v1 Torb Hammers. And
are you saying just like bum rushing someone and just holding left click was not strategy?
Well, the thing is at the beginning of me and Spider's epic battle, Spider would just be like, okay, we're just gonna run at each other. And that is what we did. I learned, for all of you Torb Hammer 1v1s out there, jumping, not beneficial.
No. Unless you're trying to, like, evade a swing. Like, that's the only time.
Like, jumping versus you're not going to hit anything when you jump. So don't do, like, the constant jumping, because you're not going to get hits. And then I like to hit my overload right before I came in contact with the other person. Be like, I'm going to get mine out now, get that extra damage in. So now you know the Torb 1v1 tactics. I mean, I'm pretty sure Mangachu learned from me.
Oh, is that what it is?
He's just a quick learner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's why he won. And that's why Defran and Spider lost.
Yeah, so the final score for the Torb 1v1 was 7-5 in favor of Mangachu. So Defran, he handed off the Torb Hammer. Now that, obviously he's retired at this point. And now Mangachu is just running with it. So, outside of that, Ed, there were a couple of things that happened. One of which I know you're going to bring up because this was one of your, like, early discussion points about Atlanta in particular, and you were worried about the turnout. But I want to talk about Saturday really quick with the production, because there was a lot of stuff going down on Saturday that was not a good look for the Overwatch League. So basically what was happening is the Twitch stream in particular was very scuffed. There were times when, they would have, like, two different caster teams. You would have one for ABC for, like, the Game of the Week, which, they had Atlanta for the Game of the Week. No surprise there. But they also had, like, the Twitch duo. But, like, there were maps where, like, the caster duos would, like, randomly swap. And it would happen, like, in the middle of fights. It would happen, like, in between rounds. Like, there were times when you would see Dylan and Monty try to, like, pull up highlights, like, during a halftime that would never come at all. So it's just, like, it was a really weird day in particular. And, it's worth noting, like, a lot of these issues were fixed on Sunday, so it was, a quick turnaround. But on Saturday, it was a rough go. But I do like the idea of having separate caster duos when it comes to, trying to captivate and, like, teach, like, a more casual audience as opposed to, like, the people that are tuning into the games, like, on Twitch.
Yeah, like, I think the epitome came to it. Like, we both realized some things were wonky. As I was sitting on my couch with my family, like, my parents, sisters, they 100% never play video games, don't give two craps about it whatsoever. But, like, I'm like, hey, on ABC, the Overwatch League, the what I do my podcast about is on ABC. So my dad, being supportive, turned it on and was like, hey, we'll watch it. First off, they waited like 40 minutes from the start of the broadcast to actually start the match.
I only have one question about this.
Okay.
At any point, was your dad the old man yells at Cloud?
No.
Okay.
He's just like, when are they gonna start playing?
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, there was a lot of stalling for time.
20 minutes into this, I'm like, it should have started by now. But they were stalling. And then, like, so it was Mitch, Uber, and Mr. X on ABC. And then my dad turned it off. He's like, okay. He's like, I don't follow any of this. This is all... makes zero sense to me. Like, fair enough. Turn it to whatever you want. So he turned on golf. Yes, we watch golf as a family. And so I started to watch it on Twitch, on mute. And then I saw Monte Cristo and Doa and I messaged you, and I'm like, why? What? I'm like, why did they switch casters in the middle of the broadcast? And you're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm just watching ABC, and Uber and Mr. X are on ABC, and Monty and Doa are on Twitch. And
yeah,
I'm like,
I know when you sent me that.
Baffling.
Yeah, I know when you sent me that DM too. Like, I pulled up the ABC live site to double check. I was like, shit, like this is actually they have 2 caster duos going on.
Right? And I'm just like, and then you start to hear all these things because like I didn't have the sound on because I was surrounded by family. I'm not gonna have the Overwatch League blaring for my family. So I didn't catch like when they were switching announcers back and forth because they don't show them all the time. So I'm like, I'm hearing all this. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, like you would like hear a pop and then like it would switch the audio to the other broadcast. It was weird.
Yeah, no, like, and like you said, I'm not against having 2 different announce teams because, Trenchcoat puts it first. Mitch Uber is good at dumbing it down for the normies. Like, he's good at explaining things. And he doesn't come off condescending like Monty would. Like, Monty comes across condescending. And then you have Doa, but, like, people hear Monty and they're like, this guy.
Hey, you gotta know to this fucking guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, this guy's a real mook. Like, this guy I kind of want to punch. And I'm like, okay, yeah. He's not the one you want to be, like, the face of the broadcasting franchise. Uber and Mr. X are. So I can see them having 2 separate casting teams. But to mishmash them and mix them up is just, that was a huge production error.
Right. So outside of that, something that you and I weren't particularly happy about was the fact that our fantasy this week got kind of screwed over by Atlanta.
Screw you, Atlanta.
They opted to run FRD over Daco. You bastards. Like, what the hell, man?
Like, why are you playing Bird? Like, did Daco really offend anybody? Like, is he in trouble? It's not like Daco. Know. It's not like Daco was playing bad. Daco was probably a top 5 flex tank in the league going into this weekend.
And honestly, like, you could definitely argue that he was the best player on that team.
Yeah. So, like, everyone's like, I picked him in my fantasy leagues with, like, when I went in, I'm like, okay, who do I want to start with? Daco.
Yeah, Daco felt like he would be, like, the best flex pick.
Yeah.
On that day, and then they just don't play.
Best pick in general. Like, I was picking Daco over any of my supports or any of my DPS because I felt that comfortable with it.
Especially after he played all stage,
Exactly. And then they're like, oh, sorry guys, we're playing Bird.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I hate you so much. I'm like, I actually hope they lost. Yeah. I was hoping they would lose.
That being said, FRD, he did have a good out-in, but it was just one of those scenes that I'm just like, these games for Atlanta did not mean anything. They had a very soft week. They had 2, like, gimme wins for their homestand. They didn't really have to play up to their opponents or anything like that. So it was a weird time to, like, randomly flip the script in regards to the actual lineup. So I know moving forward, like, I'm going to be very cautious with the Atlanta tank line until we figure out, well, like, are they just going back to FRD, or are they going to bring Daco back? I don't know, but, maybe he's, held up in a basement somewhere. We don't know.
Nope, he was on stage. Because they brought the entire Atlanta Reign on stage. So Daco has not been captured and being held in a basement somewhere.
Well, that's good to know at least. Okay, so outside of that, speaking of Toronto, who, were the best thing to watch this past week, we got to see them run a little bit of the Clockwork Vendetta comp that, if you've not been following Contenders EU, Clockwork Vendetta is one of the leading teams in that region. Mm-hmm. And they are famous for being one-tricks and having a very specific team composition. Now, there are different iterations to this composition. which initially kind of started like as a 2-2-2 comp, so, you know, should the lock happen, there's still a good chance that we'll see different variations of this, but it primarily deals with Orisa, Roadhog, Mercy, Torb, Mei, and then you can, like, flex a sniper in there. I know Toronto is running a Widowmaker in their particular lineup. But basically, like, you deal a lot with spatial control, both with the Torbjorn and the Mei. And what's really peculiar about the Clockwork Vendetta comp is you're not needing to have, like, a very specific support line. Like, there's a lot of different iterations that we have seen, so, like, it doesn't necessarily require you to have a Mercy or a Lucio primarily. And it worked to varying success for Toronto. New York definitely handled it the best. You know, they decided to basically, like, flex Libero over onto the Bastion to, you know, have that shield pressure. And then Nene was just on the flank destroying people, which was fantastic. But, you know, these are the things that we like to see. But, you know, I know Monty got a little bit of backlash, like, during his commentary for this, because he didn't, like, name drop Clockwork Vendetta, and, you know, he said, like, you know, he had kind of, like, an off day. But it's important to note, at the end of the day, you know, after Toronto finished that series, they did tag Clockwork Vendetta in their tweet about it, so, you know, it was a nice sign of respect. But I know a lot of people were, like, blowing the whole Monty situation with the commentary really out of proportion, which, you know, that's just people driving the narrative with Monty, just like people always tend to do.
Yeah, no, people just are looking for any reason to come at Monty. I will say this: if you're pro Clockwork Vendetta and pro 2-2-2, you, my friend, are an oxymoron. Just gonna throw that out there. Like, if you're pro Clockwork Vendetta, you can't be pro 2-2-2, because then 2-2-2 is like, screw you, Clockwork Vendetta. Like, you know, I just found that funny. It's like everyone was like all about, like, they're running the Clockwork Vendetta. I'm like, yeah, but you're also the same person who's like 2-2-2, which would be the death of Clockwork Vendetta. Like, you can't have one tricks that are not 2-2-2 and still keep them relevant. So, but yeah, no, it was interesting to see them pull that out. I don't know if it was Monty who made the call to not call out Clockwork Vendetta. Like, part of me wants to say is the Overwatch League they're not an affiliate. Don't bring attention to non-affiliate teams.
Or is it so much the fact that people hated goats? Because that spawned from a team that they don't want the same thing to happen again.
But they were not supposed to talk about goats even.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they called it 3-3 on the broadcast. Like, you don't want to bring up a certain comp as a non-Overwatch League organization. So right. I can see them not wanting them to bring up Clockwork Vendetta. Because, like, if you're on the ABC or Disney or ESPN Plus and you're like, hey, you know, this is the Clockwork Vendetta comp. And everyone's like, who's that? Like... Who's Clockwork Vendetta?
For all 20 of the Contenders viewers. That being said, though, like, if you're curious about how CV is doing over in Europe, they're currently 3-1 with the +5 map differential, which
they're
is
from EU. They're bad.
Yeah, they're second in their dying region.
Yeah, no, suck at EU. You suck. I'm just gonna keep bringing that up until EU beats us at something.
Okay. Gigante's still on top in this case. Well,
they're on top of a crappy division. They're like the best of the worst. Like,
so they're Washington.
Beat us in the world. Yeah, they can't beat us in the World Cup, and they can't beat us in Contenders. Let's just go with that. And if you say, well, they beat us with, you know, the Overwatch League Season 1, yeah, no. Your Korean EU team beat us.
I'm talking like UK beat us in World Cup. It feels bad, man.
Well, you know what? Either or. Semantics. EU sucks.
Yeah, we'll see if US can escape their run of fate this time. Who knows though? I will say, like, I was very happy with the Dragons Fusion match. You know, the one match that truly mattered. It was not as close as I was expecting it to be, but we do know that, you know, DM had more kills on Carpe in the Widow 1v1. But really across the board, like, DM was definitely the standout between the two players. So, from now on, it's not Carpe DM. You have to put DM before Carpe. That's just how it works.
He's just better. Like, he's the one who popped off.
Mm-hmm.
Carpe was not. Like, outside of the 1v1 matchup between the two Widowmakers, between them, like, that's minor. DM popped off on the Fusion way more than Carpe popped off on the Dragons. I think I talked about this last night, is Poco went for a Poco bomb. And DM was just like, okay, I'm over here. I'm going to hit a falling Poco from the sky in the head and then tuck behind so I don't get killed by the D.Va bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like the most picturesque sniper moment I've ever seen. And I'm just like, yeah, DM, you're real good at this. Like, I just want now a DM versus Logic's 1v1. Because, like, Logic has the best scoped critical accuracy of any Widow in the league.
Right.
And DM is the most, like... I think DM right now is the most skilled Widowmaker in the league. Happy is close.
Mm-hmm.
Saya player is close. But I think it's DM. So I want to see a DM versus Logic's 1v1 Widow.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see that.
I mean, more than likely we're going to get, like, DM versus Boombox next year or something stupid like that. Because they don't like putting Widowmakers versus Widowmakers.
Mm-hmm.
It's Widowmakers versus Flex Supports.
Who at times play Widowmaker, which is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, guys, of course, you know, we have the Stage 3 playoffs this week. So Thursday through Sunday. So to kick things off, we have Titans versus the Outlaws. I'm sorry, Outlaws. Like, you had an easy stage. You managed to secure 5 wins. You know, you upset the Shock, which, you know, that happened. You abandoned the 3-3 mirrors, which was, you know, definitely to your benefit. I have absolutely no faith in the Outlaws to have that much of a showing against the Titans. And if you're the Titans, like, let's say you're the Titans right now, Ed. Like, are you going all in on running the Sombra throughout the playoffs, knowing how quickly they seem to adapt with Stitch?
To some degree, yes. Like, for this first matchup, I think they have to go with the Stitch. Because they can't run Goats against the Outlaws comp. It's just not going to work out. I mean, I still think they would be able to run Goats and beat Outlaws comp. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be harder. Why make it harder on yourself? In the second round, if everything works out for them, they will be playing the Spark. And if I think they go up against the Spark, I think they both run Goats.
Okay.
And so then you take Stitch out of the equation, and you bring in your normal, you know, Haxel, Suiminsu, Janu, yeah, you know, that whole gang. And you go to town there, and then if you need to switch up, you can. So I don't see them running the Sombra Goats or Stitch on McCree or stuff the entire playoffs. I think they can play that very much at a situational basis.
Okay.
Depending on the map. And I think that would be smart from them. And I said it even yesterday that my big prediction is expect a map where Bumper is benched. They run Janu on Wrecking Ball, and they want to run a triple DPS. Like, you get your Haxel, Suiminsu, and Stitch in there, and Janu's on the hamster because Bumper can't play it to save his life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be an interesting matchup, but I don't think, in the worst case scenario, Vancouver only wins 3-1. I'm still predicting 4-0.
Yeah, I'm expecting the 4-0 in this one. And I will say, like, even with the kind of, like, later adaptation to the Sombra play, Stitch's Sombra honestly looked a lot better than some of the other Sombras we've seen throughout the majority of the stage, which is really speaking volumes about him as a player. So I fully expect them to go all in, especially in this particular match with the Sombra play, knowing that, Dante's probably going to be relying on that as well. So that is Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Titans, are the 2 seed, Outlaws are the 7th seed for these stage playoffs. So after that, at 8 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, we have the top seed, who are the New York Excelsior, going up against the 8th seeded Shanghai Dragons. Now, we did see these 2 teams play in Stage 2. The Dragons ended up not winning any maps. They drew one out, so, the scoreline for that one was 3-0 in favor of New York. But a lot of this is going to boil down to the Sombra fair play for the Dragons. I feel like their teamwork aspect ever since they acquired Envy has been very shaky. They got into the playoffs, with a win over the Fusion. So they were a late addition, so they kind of eased their way in. But there have been times when we have seen Libero get enforced off of his primary role to try to deal with the Pharahs, so that is going to be the Dragons' best case scenario for a window of opportunity. If they're able to abuse that, then the upset potential is there, but when we're talking about the teamwork and just the overall synergy, you have to favor New York, regardless of the playoff narrative, or New York having a very easy strength of schedule compared to the rest of the league in Stage 3. NYXL are the heavy favorites. I don't know what the odd line is for this. I haven't looked those up as of yet, but I'm pretty sure it's very one-sided in this case.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of brought this up last night. That New York, a lot of people are well, New York could lose to Shanghai and stuff like that. No, New York has lost 2 maps this entire season.
Yeah, 2 matches, yeah. Both to Atlanta.
And both to Atlanta. You need to almost think of New York as Titans, as the Titans. Mm-hmm. Taking out of context the playoffs, just regular season, they're 1 match behind the Titans. That's not a difference, really. That's negatable difference between the 2. I think anyone who thinks the Dragons have a legit shot in this are just hoping for the under. Are basically we're gonna go for the underdog no matter what. Mm-hmm. Without using their actual brain. In this, if you're betting, anyone who's all right, oh, the Dragons are gonna win, I just look at them and be I'll bet you $100, and they're no. I'm well, then you don't think the Dragons are gonna win. You just want the upset. Mm-hmm. And I use that analogy for a lot of sports. I'm you're if these people are gonna win, these people are gonna win. I'm if you honestly believe that, you'd put money on it.
Right.
But no, you won't. You just want the upset. There's nothing wrong with wanting the upset. Just admit that. Mm-hmm. Be I want the upset, and I want to see them lose. Not oh, I think the Dragons are going to beat the New York Excelsior. Are the Dragons a better team than New York? No. I don't think anyone would really admit that. It's just, people want the upset win. So this is, I think, another 4-0 worst case scenario 3-1.
Yeah, I'm on the odds portal right now looking at the odds on my phone. So looking at Outlaws Titans, we have Outlaws listed at plus 600. Titans are favored at minus 1,111. That's a weird total to put, whatever. For the Dragons Excelsior, they have Dragons at plus 348. with New York at minus 526.
Okay. Not bad.
So not as one-sided as the 2v7 match.
Yeah, it's just odds. Like you have to take those kind of odds with a grain of salt, because they adjust those odds based on the betting.
Right.
So like it's one of those. It's the Tiger Woods factor. So Tiger Woods is always the favorite to win, no matter what, because so many people bet on Tiger Woods to win. It reduces the odds, and the house is basically just protecting their ass. If in case they win, like in actual legit odds, Tiger Woods is not going to win. Like in a golf tournament, like if you told me, I'll take Tiger Woods, you get the field. I will take the field 100% of the time. And that's how these kind of odds work. It's just the gambling bets are out there for a reason.
Right.
So, I mean, if I was out in Vegas, which, God, I hope I was, I would put $200-300 down on the New York Excelsior to win. Because I'm not going to get good odds for it, but to me, it's an easy win.
Right.
And sometimes you have to do that. Like I was out in Vegas for the Mayweather-McGregor fight. And Mayweather was just an ungodly favorite in a boxing match against McGregor. I'm like, there's no way McGregor's beating Mayweather in a boxing match. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I put $200 down on Mayweather to win. I didn't win much. I think I won like $75 based on my $200 bet. But I'm like, it's just a stupid no-brainer bet. And that is what the New York Excelsior and the Vancouver Titans are. Stupid no-brainer bets.
Now, moving into Friday, we kick things off with our 4v5 match at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So we have the Shock going up against the Dynasty. So last time these two teams played, Dynasty got swept. And that was in Stage 3, week number 2. And that was when the Dynasty are like, you know what, we're just going to run 3-3 mirror comps against the Shock. And then it got absolutely demolished. So, you know, again, you know, we still, you know, there was the roster swaps happening here, where, you know, they ran one team, then they subbed out everyone but Jahan, and then they threw 5 new people in. That didn't change the result. It was still, you know, 2 losses in both halves for the Dynasty. So, who knows what luck we're going to see here, but, you know, it is important to note that when we look at the Shock, they definitely feel like, at least in this stage, they are very susceptible to the meta. And a lot of that deals around the Sombra play. Now, with Dynasty, obviously, they've undergone a couple of changes. You know, sometimes we see a new team in almost every map or two at certain times, but, you know, with Fisher retired, we don't know if that's going to be...
If they could change from on offense and defense, they would.
I honestly, like, probably. But basically, like, the 2 lineups that we saw from Sol the prior time was they ran Marvell, Munchkin, Zunba, Illicit, Toby, and Jahan. And then... they subbed everyone but Jahan out. So, you know, they ended up putting in Fitz, Michelle, Fleta, Jexay, and Hiley. I honestly don't know what lineup they're going to run, especially if, like, we don't know if they're going to just, like, sub out a specific line, should they make any swaps, or what they're going to do. But you can assume either Fitz or Michelle is going to be a must-start to play the Sombra. We just don't know who that is going to be. Michelle's probably been the better option between the two, just in regards to overall consistency of level of play. But the Shock have kind of, like, done their own twist in regards to how to deal with the Sombra play. Now, Shock are not a team that like to run Sombra. They are not a team that runs the Sombra Ana composition that we see a lot. And that does make them kind of predictable. So the way that they deal with it a lot is they have Rascal over on the Baptiste, which is basically like their identity. I mean, if we're being honest, like really no other team is running Baptiste to any sort of frequency outside of the Shock. I mean, maybe Toronto at times has done it, but like that's about it. Like we just don't see Baptiste that often. But that hasn't necessarily meant the best turnout for the Shock. Like in this current stage, like I don't see the Shock as like a top 3 team. Like I wouldn't favor them over the Titans. I wouldn't favor them over NYXL. I think the Spark are a better team, and you could possibly even make the case for like a team like the Valiant even over the Shock at this point. But it's really a matter of, okay, what are the Dynasty going to do? What lineup are we going to get? Are they going to go for a more aggressive lineup by throwing Fleta, Jexay, and Hylia in? Are we going to see Jahan at all? Like, there are just so many question marks. But if I'm sold, you do not opt into the 3-3 mirror. That will be your undo. And if you do that, you're going to get 4-0'd, and I do not want that to happen.
No. Costa put it best. It's like you cannot go at the Shock or the Titans in a 3-3 and expect to win.
Right.
You have to not do that kind of stuff. And who knows what Seoul will actually run? Like, that's the big mystery. I think you're going to get Marvel, and in honor of Dodgeball coming out also 15 years ago, my consigliere, Michelle. I've had a lot of talks about Dodgeball, the movie, today. So, consigliere Michelle. It's one of those things. He'll probably start on the Sombra because I like Michelle on the Sombra more. It's just, like you said, the Shock are not a top 3 team. I don't even know. Like, you could argue with me that they're the number 6 team in the playoffs. Like, you could argue with me that Seoul is higher up than the Shock. Like, the only 2 teams they're above are Houston and Shanghai. It's just that they look ugly. They don't know how to deal with the Sombra, but they can't play a Sombra of their own. Now, hopefully they took these, the week and a half off to try and get maybe Striker or Architect in there and get some form of DPS comp.
Yeah, in that case, it would more than likely be Striker, because it's primarily like the Tracer player, because there's a lot of like crossplay between the two.
Could be, but you could get Architect in there to play Pharah. If they don't want to go with the Rascal in the Pharah. Like, so they could do a lot of stuff that could surprise you. It's just they're not good against the countdown, the 3-2-1. They just aren't. It's one of their weaknesses, and Baptiste can be an effective counter to Sombra, but it's not the hard counter to Sombra. And still can be easily taken advantage of with dive, because when you play Baptiste, you kind of have to play dive. You have to play bunker comp with Baptiste, and that's as good as bunker comp can be. A good dive comp with a Sombra can negate all of that. It really, one well-placed hack on a Baptiste and then a dive on the bunker comp will destroy a bunker comp every time.
Well, I mean, it is worth noting for the Shock, they haven't really been running bunker. They've been running Baptiste in the 3-3.
Well, I'm just getting flashes of them on Hanamura with Baptiste, Bastion, Orisa, and they're just getting wrecked.
Right.
So they just need to adapt more. And I'm hoping they practiced it, worked on it, got a plan in motion. They couldn't have gone against a worse team to plan against.
Right.
Like, there's no, like, you're going in like, all right, what comp are we going to see?
Right.
Okay, here's 30 options of the comp that they could run.
Yeah, so, yeah, like, for me, like, the biggest question is who's going to play the Sombra. So, like, I'm assuming we're going to get the more aggressive lineup. So, they'll have Fleta, they'll have Jaxay, they'll have Hylie. Marvell is obviously starting at main tank. So, we're either going to have Fitz and Michelle, or Michelle and Zunba, with Michelle being the Sombra in that case. I feel like the high ground control from Zunba has definitely brought a little bit more value to him, as opposed to Fitz Michelle. But who knows? Like, all bets are off when it comes to Soul. They could just completely throw everything I say out the window and just be like, this is what we're running, and then they're going to change it up at halftime again, and then still end up losing both maps. You're muted. Didn't catch it that time.
Didn't catch it. I was like, Soul could come out and be like, well, we signed this person last Monday. It became official an hour and a half ago, and they're starting today. Like, again, would not be shocked. Like, you just don't know what they're gonna do, and that's like their biggest advantage. Is nobody knows what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and it's important to note too. Like, no one expected the Dynasty to beat NYXL last stage playoffs.
Yeah.
And, you kind of look at it, like, this time, like, I feel like there are a lot of people that feel like they have a pretty good upset potential, but a lot of people are still favoring the Shock in this case. But I am not going to be surprised if Dynasty end up pulling this one out. It's just a matter of what the Shock preparation is. Like, if Dynasty are not going to opt to the 3-3 mirror, which I hope to God not, because that's going to be a quick 4-0 if that's the case. But I'm pulling for the Dynasty. My head says the Shock, though.
That's probably a safe bet. Like, we're going with, like, okay, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. Or more likely, the Shock just, like, logically, the Shock.
Right. I feel like the Shock win, but then they'll lose to a better Sombrana comp in the semis. So, of course, our other quarterfinal match to finish off Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, we have the 3 versus 6 match, which is the closest match on paper. You have the Hangzhou Spark going up against the Los Angeles Valiant. And Ed, I quickly want to note the odds in this one, because this is, on odds, the closest one as well. So let me pull this up really quick. So they have the Valiant at plus 146, Spark are at minus 196.
That's actually, I mean, I expected this match to be the most, the closest betting line wise.
Right.
Because when you think about it, they played very recently.
Right.
And it went to a 5-game map.
Both times.
Yeah. Like, they are a very close team. If you came up to me and were like, the Valiant won, I wouldn't be shocked. If you told me the Spark won, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, this is the game where the Valiant are the 6th seed, but they're better than the 6th seed.
Yeah, they're more like a 4 seed.
Yeah. Like, the Valiant should be playing the Shock. And Soul should, like, them and Soul should be flipped, I think, in my mind. I mean, even them and the Shock should be flipped. Like, they should be in the matchup, the 4-5 matchup, and not the 3-6 matchup. So this is going to be a close game. It's going to depend a lot on IDK, I think, and Gushue, because the Spark play more of a GOATS comp. They've kind of stuck to that. They've dabbled into the latter, the 3-2-1, but Godsby sucks at EMPs. Like, beyond all belief. He's good as a Sombra, but his ults are worse than Nene's Graviton surges. Like, it's just bad. And it's I'm hoping the Shock win, because the Shock could be if there was a surprise team that won this stage, it would be the Spark. Like, their team, I could see beating New York and beating the Titans. I don't think they can actually play the Shock unless it's in the championship game. Very unlikely. But they're a team that could beat the Titans and could beat New York. And it wouldn't surprise me. And it'd be awesome to see because, like, the Spark are probably the biggest fan favorite team in the playoffs when it comes down to it. So I think Gooseway and IDK will be the keys to this team. They just have to counter the non-GOATs team the Valiant will throw out there.
Yeah, the Spark have been the best team at facing Sombra compositions throughout the stage. Their team fight win percentage is absolutely absurd compared to even some of the other playoff teams in here. And, as we mentioned, like, both of the times that these two teams have faced, they've gone to a fifth map. And there have been two constant things that have happened. One, the Spark have taken every control map, all 4 of them. And, the Valiant, they've secured both wins on the Assault map, so, this could very well come to, like, Valiant not committing to C9 on Control, or, maybe the Spark taking an Assault map. Something can easily kind of flip the script, but on paper, these two teams are very close. I am not confident picking either team in this one. This one is really a coin toss. Like, the Valiant have made a lot of small mistakes in their matches against the Spark. I do feel like the Spark are better at the current meta, but the Valiant definitely have a lot more to offer in regards to different compositions and different looks. It's just the Spark are better at handling those looks than the other teams that are in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the other thing with the Valiant is they just have to shut down. Like, Kareev has 100% been their MVP. Without Kareev, they're not where they're at now. And his Ana play has been probably the best Ana play at stage 3. And that's the person you need to shut down. You shut down that Ana.
If they're running D.Va, though, that kind of like lowers the effectiveness of Kareev across the board, though. Because you figure the Spark are going to be running primarily GOATs.
Because Rhea has been basically sticking to Sombra, or sticking to D.Va, while Godsby is the one switching to Sombra. But people have been running D.Va against Kareev all stage, and it just hasn't been that effective against him. He's smart enough to kind of get around that aspect of it, and I think if you can effectively shut down Kareev, the Spark will walk away with it, because there's nothing special about their tank line. Like, Backfiction, doing fine. Space isn't really playing. KSF is nothing to write home about. Agilities has been really good. Like, Agilities has kind of come into his own. And Custa is nothing special.
Yeah, and
it's Kareev and Agilities that has been carrying the team.
What's interesting is Agilities went from feast or famine to being one of the most consistent parts of that team.
I think it was just like my time to shine type of situation. He's like, this is where I can excel. This is what I can do best. So I think if they can shut down Kareev, the Spark can win it. And, hopefully they can, and they can move on. Because I would love to see Spark versus New York, or Spark versus... Well, no, it would have to be Spark versus New York in the finals, because it would be impossible to have Spark versus Vancouver in the finals.
Yeah, they'd be meeting each other.
They would meet in the semis.
Yeah,
the second round. So, yeah, ideally Spark versus New York, but I don't think that's actually what's going to happen.
Yeah, so the most likely situation is we'll have the top 4 seeds advancing. So you'd have New York going up against the Shock, Titans would be going up against the Spark. For me, like, with the pick'ems, I feel like it's a safer bet to pick the Spark. I am more invested in a Titans versus Spark match than I would be, like a New York like Valiant match. But I really want to see the Valiant like get one of the wins back. As much as I love watching the Spark, like the Valiant really need this win.
Yes.
And from a storyline perspective, they went from having an 0-7 stage to putting themselves in a good position to make that play-in tournament. And if they're able to come in, secure at least one win in the playoffs here, that's going to be a huge momentum shift for this team after the success that they have had in this stage. But this one isn't going to be a banger. And I'm really hoping it's not going to be like a one-sided affair, just due to the fact like they've been razor close every single time. I'm expecting the same thing to happen, but it really is like I'm not confident. Like I would put it 41 or like 49-51 on this one, and I don't know where I'm gonna land. I mean, I'm pulling for the Valiant, but my head says Spark. But I'm not going to be disappointed in either outcome, one way or the other.
I'm not pulling for the Valiant at all. Like, I'm a Spark fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the team I cheer for. I can't cheer for Valiant, but I still put it at like 55-45, like that kind of situation. Like, I'm not surprised if the Valiant win, but I don't want them to win whatsoever, because I want the Spark to win. If the Spark can get out of the first round, I consider that a massive success.
Right.
Because they'll play the Titans in the next round and they'll lose.
Yeah, what would you say the split is for that one against the Titans?
80-20? Like, I think they may have a 20% chance, but even that seems a bit high.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I talked about this again last night. I give the before the playoffs even start, I give the Titans a 70% chance of winning everything. Plain and simple. So, like, they're a massive favorite in every round they play, in my book. The Spark, I think, have a better shot of beating the Titans than New York does.
It's hard to say. Like, I mean, for me, like, when you look, these two teams do heavily rely on Sombra and Ana compositions. I do feel like the stats with the team fight win percentages is a little skewer just due to the strength of schedule. But, like, statistically, on that composition, NYXL and the Titans are two of the top three teams in team fight win percentages with Sombra and Ana in play. Like, the SBB Stitch one would be interesting just because, like, Stitch is, like, so new to the role. And SBB's kind of been like, picking it up as he goes. Not to say that he's been bad at it. I don't know if he's as strong as Stitch, but for a level of consistency, I would favor Mono over Bumper on the front line.
I would give it to them. I would do that. It's just the thing that, and you made this point earlier, that the Spark are probably the best team against Sombra. So if we go into Sombra versus Sombra, like the countdown matchup, I think the Spark have the advantage over the Titans more so than Sebiobi and New York does. And I think if the Titans can get past the Spark 3-2-1 and get onto the New York 3-2-1, I don't think it matters.
Mm-hmm.
If they play Sombra. Like, I don't think Sebiobi will be a factor in this issue, because they have played an easier schedule this stage. So we don't know what Sebiobi's Sombra play will be against an actual, truly legit team. And, you know, it has to be brought up, and I know it's a meme at this point, but New York in the playoffs suck. Like it has to be something with the pressure, but the New York in the playoffs tank. It's just what they do. Mm-hmm. So you have to take that into account when you're talking about New York in the playoffs. Like, it's past the point of, oh, ha, 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 this is funny. It's a trend now that New York loses in the playoffs. Like, it's past the meme point, and it's to a trend. So, yeah, I just can't believe New York wins it all.
And that's the thing, too. Like, should New York take these stage playoffs, like, maybe that narrative won't be a narrative anymore. Because, like, we've already seen, like, 2 different teams win the stage finals so far. Maybe it'll be 3. Maybe New York will pull it off. But it's just, there's always that seed of doubt in the back of your mind just due to the narrative that has been driven, just due to the fact that NYXL just hasn't reached, you know, that final destination, so to speak. But, you know, they've looked good, but, like, they've been upset in the playoffs to fit that narrative. But across the board, they have been the most consistent team outside of Vancouver throughout the season. But, you know, it's just a matter of, is SBB Sombra to a lesser extent than Stitches, regardless of what teams he's been playing or how long he's been playing it? I feel like Stitch has been better to adapt. And I feel like SBB relies a lot on his translocator position and how, like, if his team's going to be scouting well with Stitch's translocator as well. I don't know, but I'm honestly, everyone knows I'm going to be cheering for the Titans throughout the playoffs. Yep. They are my pick to take the Stage 3 finals over New York. I just want to see Titans versus the Shock in that semifinals match, and I desperately hope to see Titans just decimate them, just due to the fact that Shock basically refused to play the meta. Which, I have no problem that they don't do it, because, it does make them kind of unique in the approach that they take to deal with it, but I want to see something that's more mirrored as opposed to something that's completely different. Just because from my perspective, the way I look at it, you get a better idea of how people are head to head, as opposed to just 2 unique compositions. So you get to see the levels of both sides of the field, as opposed to just saying, well, this team's really good at dealing with this meta, but this team only plays this. So, I don't know, that's just the way that I see it.
Yeah, it's going to be a complete toss-up, because they've also all been off 2 weeks, essentially, except New York, who's probably sandbagging because
they were basically off.
Yeah. And we don't know what they're going to actually run. And it's going to be a crapshoot. It's just we know that they're not going to run goats. That's the only safe thing I can assume is they're not going to run goats. Because if they run goats, everyone knows they're going to lose to the Shock and the Titans in a goats v goats meta. So that's the only thing for sure that's not going to happen. But I honestly don't know if in my head, I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. But then I'm like, more than likely, none of that shit will happen. And that actually excites me about these playoffs. So we'll see. This is probably the most competitive playoffs we've had to date.
Right. Yeah, so when we look at it, the upset potential on Friday is very high. Thursday, non-existent. Basically. So, we can see any number of matches, so we'll have to see how things shake out. But again, that will be running Thursday through Sunday, with, the stage finals being at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday. So stay tuned for that. And of course, join our listener league on Friday on fantasyowl.com. Submit your daily lineups. But with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. We're always looking for insight on how we can make for a better show for you guys. So any sort of constructive criticism is always welcomed. If you would like to find additional Overwatch-related content, be sure to check out Overwatch Recall that is available on our website. And then, of course, every Sunday we release the episodic listens of all of the, Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League podcasts on our website as well as on Twitter at OW Recall. But if you're looking for the podcast directory, it is owlnshow.com/OW Recall, and then the weekly recall is owlnshow.com/weekly recall. And of course, if you would like to support our network, there's a couple of things you can do. You could throw us your Twitch Prime subs, or, just a $4.99 sub over on Twitch. Or, if that it doesn't suit your fancy, you could also show some support via our Patreon page. There we have tiers starting at just $1 a month, so you can find more info at patreon.com/OWL Network. So you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Blazin' Bob, Brendan, Josabal, and Owl in helping our network grow. And, it is worth noting, obviously Stage 3 is coming up to a close here this week. We are going to have panels soon, July 19th through the 21st. I am still waiting to hear back from a lot of people. So I'm being cautiously optimistic right now.
Answer your DMs, people.
Just because, I think I've heard back from, 5 or 6 people. And I'm trying to fill, basically 18 positions. So I'm not going to say anything set in stone as of yet, but I will hopefully have a better idea by the end of the week once everyone is settled back from the Atlanta homestand, so stay tuned for more info on that. But with that being said, Ed, of course, we have so many different ways how our listeners and our viewers can get a hold of us, so why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that.
All right. You can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website where we post all our wonderful videos of all our live shows, any 1v1 shenanigans, our power rankings, all that stuff is over on owlnshow.com. We do have a YouTube, and that is youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, where we are pretty active, at least during the games, at discord.me/OWLNshow. We are on Twitch presently, and that's twitch.tv/OWLNshow. Shut up, Totem. I see you laughing. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly. So we have the Overwatch League Network that Totem and Spider do on Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. We have OWL by the Numbers, which is our fantasy Overwatch League podcast that me, Totem, Ramses, and Blazin' Bob do Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then we have this show, Heroes Never Die, which airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule. So be sure to follow us, especially on Discord and Twitter and all that stuff, to be notified when we go live. Like me and Totem have been trending towards doing some streaming before Overwatch League Network, and we do our placements, stuff like that. So definitely follow us for that. Totem did mention our Patreon. That's patreon.com/OWL Network. So come over there, help us out any way you can. $1 a month would be fantastic. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch, or on Twitch at Edinar, or at space Edinar OW, where I will actually be streaming some World of Warcraft raiding this weekend. I'm going to go in there in glorious fashion and die on my mage. So come over there and watch that. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I'm over on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. You can find me casually trolling the Overwatch community. And, of course, poking fun at people. And that's basically what we do. But anyways, I do want to thank everyone again for hanging out with us tonight on another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 168. I have been your host, Totally Drunk, joined as always by my co-host, Edinar, and we hope to see you guys back next week as we talk all about the Stage 3 playoffs. enjoy the playoffs. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week, guys. Have a good
one.